Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I just found very interesting documentary about the brutality of the Jewish state of Israel on the Palestinians in terms of genocides and internal witness. Good information from inside, and please enjoy. All of it is in English, and I really don't have anything to comment on this count because it's right there. You can listen to it. I just didn't want you to lose this information. Israel has definitely been identified as a genocider against the Palestinian people, and everybody knows it by now. I don't think there is any way out of this. The whole world opinion is turning against it. On this account, I'm talking about, and ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the show. Enjoy the show.
There are hundreds, if not thousands, of videos of beheaded Palestinian babies and children, Palestinian children with severed limbs, killed by Israel. And not a single corporate media outlet has reported on how Israel has systematically beheaded Palestinian children on a daily basis for the last 15 months for Israel's genocide by repeating a story about an incident which never took place.
We have some really disturbing new information out of Israel. The Israeli Prime Minister's spokesman just confirmed babies and toddlers were found with their heads decapitated.
I choked up earlier reading this new revelation about 40 babies being killed.
Oh my God.
Any human being do that to a baby?
Babies and children, when they're beheaded and their limbs are severed and they're found hanging from trees with half of their body missing, that they are not worth the coverage. Houses, and once they released him, they shot and killed him and his wife. Did you know that Israeli soldiers were captured on film raping a Palestinian hostage? And when news of this came to light, Israeli far-right politicians and soldiers and ordinary people protested outside of the facility where the soldier was being held, demanding that he be released. And in parallel, the Israeli Knesset engaged in debates on the right of Israeli soldiers to rape Palestinian hostages.
הטרלול הזה של לעצור חיילים על דברים שעושים למחבלי נוח'בה לא נגמר. אנחנו לא יכולים להמשיך כרגיל.
להכניס מקל לרקטום של בן אדם, זה לגיטימי?
כן, אם הוא נוח'בה הכל לגיטימי לעשות.
אוקיי.
הכל. הכל.
One shot him in the stomach. Even though the name of Layla al-Khatib, who was sitting down to eat dinner with her family in occupied Jenin, she was shot in the head by an Israeli sniper. Not only did the Israeli sniper shoot her, but then the Israeli occupation forces prevented her and her family from rushing to get medical care. And she and children killed by Israeli occupation forces in the occupied West Bank in 15 years. But did you even know about it? The life expectancy in Gaza, if that isn't proof of genocide, I don't know what could be proof of genocide. Did you from being returned to their families? Over 600 Palestinian bodies are being illegally held by Israel, some since the 1960s. Did you know that if you go on Google Maps, that Israel has completely destroyed and erased that village in Gaza, that city in Gaza, and instead replaced all of the buildings, the stores, the homes, the parks, the schools, the mosques, the churches, with thick mud embedded with Israeli tank marks in the shape of a Star of David that is related to the provision of basic services like electricity, like water, like sanitation. It destroyed 90% of the housing units in Gaza. 90%. If that isn't genocide, I don't know what is. The majority of all housing units in Gaza does not constitute intent to destroy a people in whole or in part. If you continue to get your people had endured, but when violence is carried out against Palestinians systematically in much wider proportions over 76 years, it is something that the global north wants us to accept as a reality, as a status quo, as the default. And
assessment, I would say that they're criminal. In my entire career, have I never witnessed
the level of brutality and use of indiscriminate and unnecessary force against a civilian population, an unarmed, starving population. I've never witnessed that in all of the places I've been deployed to war until I was in Gaza at the hands of the IDF and US contractors.
The gentleman you just heard from is not only an American, he's actually Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Aguilar, who's a retired US Green Beret, who actually decided to volunteer and sign up for the humanitarian aid distribution in Gaza. Now,
it's not a battlefield, though it might look like one. It's a food distribution point in Gaza. Bullets are kicking up the sand as men wait to get food. It's one of 4 sites run by the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, a joint Israeli-US scheme they say replaces the UN and keeps food away from Hamas. This video is of the foundation's armed American security guards opening fire. It was filmed by a US soldier who signed up for the operation in Gaza after he retired and left, he says, when he saw American colleagues and the IDF killing civilians. The soldier is Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Aguilar, a Special Forces veteran of the US Army's Green Berets.
I witnessed
9 times the civilians that Hamas did on October 7th. So that's 49 October 7th in Gaza, okay? So 300 more civilians waiting for food in line for just enough for their children to survive. 300 more of those civilians killed than Hamas killed on October 7th. Other lies. If the Israeli government is speaking, the Israeli government is lying. They've dropped the equivalent of 6 Hiroshima-sized bombs in Gaza. They've absolutely leveled the place. But no amount of starvation is enough.
Trusted Palestinian freelancers we work with in Gaza who are themselves starving. Israel does not allow international journalists to enter the territory. So we went to a spot overlooking Gaza, a vantage point in the frontline town of Sderot, where Hamas attacked and killed Israeli civilians on the 7th of October 2023. Israelis come here to look at the war, only a few miles away. Since my last visit, vending machines have been installed if anyone needs refreshment. From here, it feels like looking out of one world into another, not distant, but remote and isolated.
For the Germans back then in the 1940s and going, this is where we're starving the Jews. Hey, it's a tourist spot. Hey, let's put it on Insta.
Disgusting.
It's disgusting. It's morally depraved. What are you taking a picture of? The murdered Palestinian children? And that's not government officials. There's something wrong, unfortunately, these days in the culture of Israel.
Palestinian children. In the video that we just showed you, you could see one of those children who is skin and bones. It's absolutely devastating. Now, one of the arguments that, well, interestingly enough, there was a piece published in the New York Times over the weekend. It's rare for the New York Times to publish pieces like this, but I do commend them for doing it. It's titled, "No Proof Hamas Routinely Stole UN Aid, Israeli Military Officials Say." Let me just repeat that last part again. Israeli military officials say. So members of Israel's own military admit, no, Hamas actually is not stealing the UN aid in the Gaza Strip.
For any normal moral person who objectively sees the news, I'm talking about reaching the American people. Because in order to reach the American people, first you have to get through a layer of American politicians who are almost all corrupt, almost all have their top donors as AIPAC and Israeli lobby food. And you saw the American colonel, clearly saying, no, there's no question. I saw it with my own eyes. Did you know, so there's 1,200 killed, roughly, it's actually 1,136 or so, 37, something along those lines, killed on October 7th, terrible, tragic, we said it a million times. Only, it's a terrible number, but around 800 to 850 of those were civilians. 300 or so were IDF soldiers, right? So now that's what I mean. They've killed 300, everyone waiting in food is a civilian, now confirmed. Okay, so that's 300 more civilians killed just waiting for food while they're starving than the great apocalyptic tragedy of October 7th, which we're told is the worst thing that's happened since the Holocaust. So if that's the worst thing that's happened since the Holocaust and the Israelis have done 50 times worse, what does that make the Israelis? And by the way, there's something wrong in the culture, okay?
Well, let's say, gentlemen, it's becoming too obvious now for the Israelis to hide it. I think Netanyahu did the biggest mistake of his life and has now threatened this basic survival of the Israeli nation. The whole world is sympathizing with the Palestinians. There is even a more interesting, sad, of course, interesting documentary following, and keep watching. Thank you.
These days in that government, not for Jews across the world at all, because they didn't grow up in that culture. They grew up here, they grew up in Norway, they grew up in different places. But that culture has got something deeply, deeply wrong with it. And you could see it in the smiling, people taking Instagram photos behind them of starving children. This is where we're murdering the Palestinians.
Has to isolate this rogue, apartheid, genocidal.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I found this documentary extremely interesting, and please follow it carefully, very carefully. It is from inside the Israeli society. Real-time information, and have a good time.
Maniac, serial killing, pathologically lying state, isolated, shame anyone who goes there. Academics, celebrities, politicians, and they've been exposed for what they are. And Zionism's propaganda has collapsed entirely. The world sees Israel for what it is, and it can't last for long in its current state. You cannot be a fascist. And that's why they act the way they do, with full, total impunity, with hatred in their hearts. And we're seeing essentially the Fourth Reich today, marching forward. And there's no allied forces coming to save us. The Israeli Knesset just passed a law allowing the execution of Palestinian prisoners, but not Israelis. This is the true face of apartheid Israel. But this is nothing new. I saw this firsthand when I was in Israel back in 2016. Full-throated.
There's only one way, I would carpet bomb them.
You would carpet bomb them?
It's the only way you could deal with it.
I didn't realize this. I didn't realize how viscerally, grotesquely genocidal Israelis were. How open.
You feel strongly about that?
Because Jews is a special nation that God gave it to the Jews. We don't want the Arabs to be here.
They knew that they were on camera. That's what's so alarming to me too. I wasn't trying to hide. I wasn't doing gotcha journalism. I was situation.
I think Israelis have to take over, and they have to kick them away.
I was so horrified and alarmed at the genocidal rhetoric that was being espoused. Every single person, for every generation, every walk of life, they wanted ethnic cleansing. They said we should nuke them. One little girl laughing, we should kill all Arabs. Kill all Arabs.
We need to kill the Arabs.
It shows you the impunity back then, the arrogance to just assume this is what you guys think too, right? You're an American, you agree with me. You guys have been doing the same thing. This is who we are. We're proud. Raised into Berlin in 1932, I really felt absolutely disgusted. I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. I mean, just walking a couple steps, and as white as I am, are you Arab? Are you Arab? And I'm like, what? I'm an American. Oh, good. We can talk about Arabs then. We can talk about how much we hate Palestinians. I saw the writing on the wall back then. I saw that there's no hope from within Israeli society. I went to refugees out. These were things that we're told Israel's a safe haven for Holocaust survivors, for genocide survivors. Well, why are all the African refugees put out in the middle of the Negev desert into a concentration camp? Why don't they want any African refugees there? They tokenize Ethiopian refugees, but then they make them take Depo-Provera birth control because they don't want them to reproduce. This is the nature of Israeli society. It's an ethno-state, and it's built on supremacy and hate, because that's what Zionism is.
How many
Who gives a shit?
Okay, but don't you feel like, for example, children have been killed in Gaza, from what you know?
Hey, Felix here. She was hanging out with me.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you see, she's talking about some kind of contraceptive issues, scientific, whatever, with the Ethiopian Jews in Israel, and have a good time. It's unbelievable what that country can do to people.
And if you've been watching our channel, you know we
How many civilians have been killed in Gaza, from what you know?
Who gives a shit?
Okay, but don't you feel like, for example, children?
Children grow up to be Arabs.
You have to continue to expel, you have to continue to kill to keep that artificial majority in place.
If you gave me a button to just erase Gaza, every single living being in Gaza would no longer be living tomorrow, I would press it in a second. I would press it right now. Give me that button and press it right now.
There you go.
And I think most Israelis would.
During the Gaza genocide, to see people just proclaim out in the open the genocidal incitement.
It's an entire nation out there that is responsible.
אנחנו משמידים את כל מה שעוד נשאר מהרצועה, ולא משאיר אבן על אבן, גם מים אנחנו לא צריכים לתת לרצועת עזה. אנחנו מפרקים את עזה ומשאירים אותה כאויי חרבות, עם הרס מוחלט וחסר תקדים בעולם.
זכור את אשר עשה לך עמלק, נצטווינו. אנו זוכרים ואנו נלחמים.
It was heinous and horrifying, but finally people saw Israel for what it is. It's all been exposed. They're not hiding anymore.
כל ילד, כל תינוק בעזה הוא אויב.
אני רוצה להעיף אותם, להשמיד אותם עד האחרון בהם.
אם מעזה, אתם תמשיכו לרעוב, תמשיכו למות, הבתים שלכם ימשיכו להישרף.
אני לא חושב שיש מישהו במדינת ישראל, בארץ ישראל, שצריך לרחם על העזתים האלה. לא על מבוגרים, לא על קשישים, לא על צעירים ולא על ילדים. מבחינתי שירעבו למוות, מה אכפת לי מהם?
אנחנו שורפים להם את הכפר. זה טוב שאנחנו שורפים להם את הכפר.
Israel's propaganda is not working anymore because for the first time, Palestinians have been able to just show us the unvarnished truth of the reality that they endure on a daily basis. We see the settler terrorism. We see the people getting mowed down for doing nothing. We see the crimes every single day. You cannot hide genocide from us. So the propaganda has become cartoonish.
I'm very puzzled by the constant concern which the world is showing for the Palestinian people and is actually showing for these horrible, inhuman animals.
It's inverted just everything that we know to be true. Black is white, up is down. It's the most moral army in the world. We're a benevolent empire spreading human rights and democracy. Who the hell believes this anymore? So it's become silly. It's become absurd.
The Israelis today saying that Hamas use Palestinians as human shields, do they?
Killing the victims, then blaming the victims for killing themselves. I mean, what is this logic?
They infantilize us. They treat us like children.
This is a genocide happening in front of our eyes.
We have, that word is, as you know, incredibly emotive, and the Israelis, as you know, will be saying that they are targeting Hamas only.
It's become so obvious that we're being dictated to, that our reality is curated by tech overlords who are profiting off the infrastructure of genocide, of the surveillance of our lives. All of these things are interconnected. So
whatever it is, in terms of humanity, it's so disgusting. Whatever it is, for whatever reason they're doing this, it's just intolerable. Enough is enough, ladies and gentlemen, enough is enough. Whatever reasoning they have behind it, whatever the backdrop of the whole problem is, enough is enough. People are disgusted of all the people. The Israelis should have been taking care of humanities. Ladies and gentlemen, you cannot kill kids. You cannot kill them just because of what they are. Enough is enough. I think it has become obvious. Obvious they cannot hide their sins any longer, man.
Propaganda doesn't work anymore. It's too infantilizing and stupid.
One day after describing it as a tragic mishap, Israel has now claimed a deadly double strike on a Gaza hospital was prompted by the discovery of a Hamas camera.
A Hamas camera is why they blow up journalists at a hospital, because they have a camera that was belonged to Hamas? I mean, it just makes corporate media journalists and establishment journalists look like buffoons, doesn't it? For towing this absurd propaganda that's so hollowed out and childlike. They should be ashamed of themselves.
We have some really disturbing new information out of Israel. The Israeli Prime Minister's spokesman just confirmed babies and toddlers
in this. But you see Israel buying up media outlets.
We have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we're engaged. And the most important ones are in social media. And the most important purchase that is going on right now is TikTok. TikTok, number one.
You have caused a lot of damage to your own people. You have caused a lot of disaster to the own existence of the Jewish people. Sir, your brutality doesn't represent the Jewish people. I don't think so. Maybe Zionism, yes. This is the harsh reality today, ladies and gentlemen. Contradiction on this side and the reality on this side. They cannot hide the scene any longer, and people are responding. The international community is angered because we were angered by the Jewish experience back then in the reigns of Nazi, and they do the same thing on the Palestinians. They have done it. It has become too late. It is too late right now, ladies and gentlemen. It's too late. It's too late. I have no idea what the consequence is going to be. Very sad, melancholic human experience. Jesus Christ.
Israeli billionaires trying to tamp down on the narrative. They're desperate. They're desperate because they know that's the only way they'll survive, is to try to convince the world of the opposite of what we're all seeing. So that's why you see these desperate, pathetic influencers just spewing lies.
I'm here in Gaza, and all I see is food, water, and opportunity. But instead of Hamas distributing the ramen noodles, they're eating it all, and that's why their leaders are on Ozempic.
Because that's all they have left. They don't have anything anymore. But it's too late. We're never
understand that, my dear.
We're going to forget what it looks like when Palestinians hold their children in plastic bags. No one can forget that. I'm never going to forget the sound of a drone emitting a crying baby so it can massacre children who come out of their homes.
قوات قطر تطلق صوت أطفال الآن من مخيم إنسارات. امبارح استشهدوا شاب طلع مسؤول يشوف إيش الصوت في مدرسة طبعا طلع والله قنصوه.
And get lured like a cat and mouse. No one's going to forget that. No one's going to forget what it looks like in Gaza today. You can't wash that away. You can't paper over that with degenerate propaganda, base level lies. No one's going to paper over the unvarnished.
It's very unfortunate. They're doing it in Lebanon too. I have no idea when they're going to stop and how far the world has to wait in this situation without involvement in stopping them. But I think human consciousness has been raised to a certain extent, and everybody knows what the Israelis are doing. I hope you found this very interesting. We will come back with this kind of information as it comes. And have a good day. Have a good time.
Thank you.